Hey, welcome everybody. In this video, in this special training and event, I'm really pleased to welcome Jeremy Ryan Slate, the man, the myth, the legend behind Command Your Brand. What's up, my friend?
Hey, brother, I'm stoked to be here. I know you and I have known each other for a bunch of years now, and just been so awesome to kind of see your success rise and, all the people we've been able to help together.
I feel much the same, my friend. I remember us getting together in New York on the sidelines of Book Expo a few years back and just following how you've grown not only your podcast, but now help so many other people help get their message out through podcasts. And really just, in my view, you've both positioned yourself very well within the podcast space. And I hope that our partnership, as we've, sent authors your way and that we start to collaborate to the benefit of both of our audiences, that's my intention. But today it's all about how do we educate and inform and hopefully entertain some people around podcasts and the opportunity that we have with podcasts. So what do you see?
Absolutely.
Like, like real time now, there's so much going on. Like, what are you noticing?
Well, I'll say, because we're recording this, the world's kind of like going crazy right now, and I apologize to everyone if we have any internet lag, because the interwebs are going crazy right now. But I will say, um, I know, at least for myself, my own stats of my podcast have been going up by about 20%, which has been pretty awesome. I've also been getting reached out to by like guests that I actually had on my list I haven't been able to get in touch with. Like I had Jack Canfield the other day, which was incredible. And I'm starting to have like
Had them on
a
the
lot of
show?
big
Or,
guests. Yeah, Jack and I jammed last week, and we got an episode coming out next week. He's a great dude.
sure.
And I'm getting a lot of people reaching out to me that before hadn't even like answered emails or things like that, because there's a real push to get in front of media. And this is one of the few ways to really do it right now, because the 24-hour news cycle, they're not covering business in the right way. They're not covering authors. They're not covering a lot of the stuff that's happening right now. So a lot of it's, up to us and our ethical responsibility to get our mission out there on podcasts, man, because that's the way to be. I know before we started recording here, you and I were talking about one of my friends. He has the #1 show in Romania, and he usually gets anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 downloads a day. And he sent me a screenshot of his hosting account where he had 50,000 for one day and 70,000 for another day, and they just kept climbing. He said that he doesn't even know what to do with the volume. He said it's insane seeing it come in. And I think there is a huge opportunity here for people that want to get seen and heard, especially when it kind of seems like the world's falling down around us. This is the way to do it, man.
No, thank you so much for sharing that perspective. From the publishing side, we see a spike in interest in audiobooks and in digital books. Fortunately, all the printing presses are still rolling for physical books, but I think it speaks to what you're saying, Jeremy, that when people, at least at this point in time, or lives are disrupted, they're at home, they're looking for something, information, education, not just like checking out and binge watching Netflix. And that sort of speaks to this huge surge in people looking and listening to podcasts and so forth. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. And even from my own experience, like I am a huge New York football fan, or not even football, sports fan. So I'm always looking at, I listen to ESPN radio here in New York. Like, dude, I can't even listen to the radio anymore. They don't talk about sports. Like it's come where like audiobooks and podcasts on a personal level are literally the only thing I can listen to if I don't want to be shoved into the world out there. And in fact, I just bought a new audiobook this morning. I just picked up the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, which is a very interesting read thus far. So I think, honestly, if you want to get seen and heard, and if you want to have some ability to control your narrative, because, if you're getting placed on podcasts, you have a lot of ability to control how your story's being told. Like, this is the right time and the right place to do it, man.
I love it. So that really speaks to this surge of interest that we're seeing for people that are already positioned and have podcasts, which, I bet if the more episodes you have, the more somebody can binge listen everything you've ever created if they like you at that first point of contact. But how could people that don't necessarily have a podcast, or that are authors and people that are looking to get onto other shows, what advice would you give to them, or what advice would you give to authors generally to take advantage of these trends that we're looking at and talking about here?
Well, I would say, honestly, the book tour has become virtual now. I know you and I have talked about this a little bit, and we both just had an awesome success story from a book tour that we worked on together on Facebook recently, which was
Talking
amazing.
about
Yeah, Dane Maxwell's Start from Zero. And then that's pretty awesome. So like I even I think it was like was it 3 years ago that Lewis Howes put out the School of Greatness? Like he launched that book from just going on 26 podcasts. Like that was like his goal in like getting out there. Now they're the right podcast, which is really, really important. But I'll say like as an author, it's easier than ever to get in front of the right people, not have to fly all over the country, and be able to do it from kind of the safety of your own home in a lot of ways. So I think it's actually more attainable than ever. And even the niching down, I guess just to use Dane as an example, like the niching down on what you can do, like we found his very specific publics within his major public, and we got in front of those, being stay-at-home moms, being people starting businesses, being people that had been laid off. You can get so specific in your niche and be just in front of your people. Like we had worked with an author a number of years ago. This wasn't somebody that came from you, but we worked with an author that they wrote a book. And you're going to freak out about this. They wrote a book. They were an interior designer that had kind of realized their business wasn't really cutting it anymore. So they rebranded themselves by writing a book about how to redesign your home for either yourself or your elder parents when they get to a certain age that you're kind of worried about them hurting themselves in their home. And that was a launching point for her new business, which she did on podcasts. So you can kind of really get in front of an incredibly unique type of audience and really create a human touch with them by spending a half hour, 45 minutes with a person.
Yeah. So, I mean, I absolutely endorse, as authors generally, podcasts should be an integral part of your marketing strategy. And as we're starting to speak to here, like with regards to Start From Zero that we collaborated on, it was actually a months in advance effort to say, who are these audiences? Or you said the public within the public, like who's the readership or the target audience at a more narrowly defined area? Because I think with podcasts and other digital media where there's not a corresponding cost to reach the next person, you can get super passionate people in the most narrowly defined subjects, right? Like stay-at-home moms gardening in Nebraska. Who knows? Maybe there's even a show for that, right?
Right. Well,
if there is, those 1,000
yeah.
people are tuning in every single episode and want to hear, like, yeah, you want to speak to that a little more?
Well, I was gonna say like here's a weird one that I realized recently. I'm not a Patriots fan, but I'm a huge fan of Tom Brady. So to follow everything that's been happening with Tom Brady, I've been listening to a podcast called Locked On Patriots. So they have promotion on their podcast to talk about, do you want to hit people that are just Patriots fans? You can get that by listening to this podcast. So I think just the ability to get in front of your specific niche is super vital, because I think the lie a lot of people are told is the big audience is the best audience, which is just not true. Because if it's a big, like if you're a doctor and you get in front of a big room of industrial engineers, like that's not your public. It's not going to do anything for you. And I think that's what's really cool, is you can get in front of that specific public. The go big or go home, idea here is a lie. The idea is niching down here.
No, I can relate. I mean, I hear every day, who do you want to get on? Oprah. I want my book to be on feature on Oprah. Great. And so does everyone else. But let's say even that opportunity happened and you didn't have the fundamentals in place, let alone like distribution and other things for a book. I'm speaking about a book now. Like that opportunity would be a huge spike in interest, and then it would drop off just about as quick. And so like you kind of have to be ready. And I've always found personally, like when my book came out and I was doing podcasts and did the whole thing, like it was a snowball effect of I'd say yes to anything. I'd go on anyone's show. And then at the end, I'd be like, people would be like, wow, that was such a good interview. I'd be like, brother, I'd so appreciate if like one or two other podcast hosts that you think I'd be a good fit for, and just sort of like politely sit there as they made the introductions. And then I can follow up and be like, yeah, man, I crushed it. I hope I helped Jeremy's audience so much. And thanks for the introduction. I'd love to be on your show too. And that snowball effect is what resulted, at least in my case, in getting on Entrepreneur on Fire, getting on Art of Charm, which at least at that time, and they're still popular, but that was like cream of the crop. I was so happy, but it was like the 25th podcast I was on. And so anything you could speak to in terms of like just getting started and getting exposure and building your chops, sharing your message and everything, because it was so helpful for me to get that dialed in, 5 interviews, 10 interviews. Now I see how to emphasize the different talking points with regards to my book and everything.
Well, I'll say first and foremost, like the thing a lot of authors need to take a look at is first off being media ready. And what I mean by that is honestly how a lot of your social media profiles are set up, how your website is set up, because you do need to portray yourself as a public figure that's doing media. So, one of the major things, and I know your people don't do this because you coach them on how to do this the right way, but a lot of people don't do this is they don't have a media page on their site. Like, it hasn't shown they've done media before. It hasn't shown they're competent at doing media. Whether you haven't done a lot, that's fine. But the way I tell people to get your media chops up, if you haven't, is find what I call your small pond, because everybody has one, right? Like, everybody has a small pond. I grew up in a small town, 5/8 of a mile in size. Nothing happens there. But the beautiful thing about it is, because nothing happens there, it's very easy to get in the small weekly newspaper that gets sent to everybody's house in the county. So you start with that, write a press release about what you're doing. It'll most likely get picked up in their print version, which looks really cool when you take a picture of and put up on social media, and also their online version, which is beautiful because you're not going to put that on your media page, which features that and shows you're an expert. And then in terms of like where you're starting out on podcasts, like, I, at this point as a host, I've done like 700 plus interviews and, several hundred more as a guest. But I remember the first time I was on an interview as a guest, man, like I was kind of like shaking in my shorts. And I tell people the best way to start out is start with shows that have less than 20 episodes and start with shows that have less than, 50 reviews, because this phenomenon, which you've probably seen, happens around 20 episodes, something called pod fading. Shows that have either 18 to 20 episodes or 22 episodes and they don't continue. So they're going to be much more apt to try and get content. So that's going to help you kind of get your chops up. So when you do get that entrepreneur on fire, when you do get that art of charm, you're kind of set up and you can communicate in the right way. So it's a lot easier for you to get that. So I'd say that's kind of the primer. After that, did you want to say something? Look like you're going to say something.
No, I was just going to say, even though it was my 25th interview, I was still nervous as all get out before I got on the line with JLD for the first time.
Oh man,
I was like, real. Like, there you are.
I was all red on that interview, man. I was like nervous as anything.
Which it really just speaks to, because like in a way we're on the other side of the coin and we're part of media in our own way, but coming into it, like, that was definitely my impression of the biggest podcasts have the same almost iconic status as like television shows and other forms of traditional media used to hold. And I think they're even more viable and probably a better option to spend most of our time and energy on than pursuing traditional media. Although, sure, I'd never turn down a nationally syndicated TV spot either, right?
It looks great, man. I'd do it too.
But just for like leverage and simplicity and getting started and being able to do it all from right here, sitting right where we're at right now, like, kind of hard to beat for podcasts. That was what I was going to say.
Well, and I'll say there's a couple components to that too, because I'm going to kind of get a little nerdy here for you. One of the things that I did before I did this is I actually did search engine optimization and website development before I got into the whole podcast world and whatever. So the beautiful thing about podcasts is I'm actually, for my own name, I'm the first 12 pages of the Google result. And that's from all the podcasts I've been on. Podcasts are actually really great at helping you to rank in Google and helping you to get found in Google for search terms. It's really pretty incredible, like what can happen because of that. Because you're going to start ranking for the right terms, you're going to start ranking for the right things, and you're going to start getting found more. And that's not even people listening to you. That's just in search, which is pretty incredible. And something we kind of really all want to happen for us.
And can you extend that as well beyond just for your own name in terms of like, is this for episode titles, or if somebody searches for a theme and you've done 15 different episode interviews, like now all of a sudden people are seeing your perspective with other guests on a topic they're looking for. Is that part of the other way that this listenership starts to grow organically past, the initial getting started stage?
Which is a pretty incredible thing too, because like you're saying, people search for one topic, whether it's in Google, which now, I don't know if you've seen this, but in search results now, Google now features podcasts at the top, which is pretty cool as well. So I would want to be found at the top of search. The other thing too is, sometimes people are looking for, other famous people that talk on your topic. And because you have started to create more credibility there and rank more, you're going to get found a lot more. Because what happens is, and this, once again, I'm going to nerd out a little bit.
No, but you see how I smile when you say you're going to nerd out? I get happy about it.
I get so excited, man. In the search engine optimization world, there's this thing called authority score. All sites are ranked on a scale of 1 to 100, 100 being really good, meaning you have high authority. So to get a link from something with high authority score, helps your site get found more than one with low authority score, right? Like, so that's why you want to have like really great sites linking to you. Now, here's the nerdy part. Two of the most popular podcast hosts out there are Libsyn, which stands for Liberated Syndication, Podbean. Those two are authority scores above 90. So whether anybody ever listens to your podcast, as long as somebody's linking to you in your show notes, it still really helps to rank your website. Like if you look at my, if I showed you a screenshot from Moz.com of my early SEO on my website, all of my backlinks were from Libsyn right away. So like a lot of these things start to get you found more and kind of create what I like to call your digital footprint online.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more than just that interview, just that feature, just that TV appearance. If you're creating a digital footprint, you're actually changing the game rather than, going for a quick short hitter.
No, I love that you put it that way. Like it's such an interesting perspective because I've always thought like the first goal is own the whole top 10 for your own name. Like that's kind of like baseline is if someone's looking for you, if someone puts in Jesse Krieger, there should at least be a page full of search results of different places to explore, but that can easily extend into multiple pages or, being seeded throughout dozens of pages of search results just with the
When people put in Jesse Krieger, do they ever randomly get pictures of Robbie Krieger from The Doors or no?
Not as much. I think I've finally established myself independent of my, I wish I could say I was related to him because the coolest stuff.
Sorry, I had to throw that one at you.
Guitars I ever know. No, it was a good one, man. But that's the thing too, right? If your name is a little more vanilla, like you're not the only person with that name, John Smith, let's say, for example, how do you start to stand out?
That's why I did that, honestly, because so my parents named me after an actor from the TV show Bonanza, Jeremy Slate, who actually, like, his real name is Robert Pullum, so the jerk kind of just took my name. But I started using my middle name, and that's why I did that. So I'm Jeremy Ryan Slate, not because like I think I'm way too cool for school, but because I wanted to start getting found in Google search. And what you start to do is did you want to say something?
No, please speak to this.
What you start to do is you start to build authority for 3 keywords, which then can easily be transferred to 2 as you build more authority. So it really helped me to get found more often, which was pretty incredible, man. Like it was pretty awesome. And then in 2017, old Jeremy Slate passed away and stopped paying the hosting on his website. So I bought his URL. But these are things you have to take into consideration, man. Like, who else has your name or a similar name? And you have to take these, with everything being online now, especially as an author, like you have to think of how can I create something unique for myself?
It's such an amazingly poignant point that kind of gets glossed over a lot of times, but like you have the option now, if you're starting, to really claim that digital space around your name and a couple other keywords like Jeremy has with Command Your Brand. And then you start to build out the sandcastle on top of it, right? All of those footprints and all the different touch points. But also if you do already have one, you can pivot or take what we're talking about into account to become even more found. If there's competing interest for you or your brand's name, then I think it's a smart strategy to totally separate and stand out, on your own and differentiate from being commingled with other people's results.
Because you have to think like as an author, whether you're launching a book right now or maybe you're planning in the future on launching your next book, you're still building a brand, right? Like you're still building something that's going to get seen. Maybe you want like somebody like Brad Thor. Brad Thor is a brand. Vince Flynn is a brand. Like they become more known for their name and the work that they publish. But like you have to be thinking of this at every single time that you're putting this stuff together.
No doubt. So let's sort of like take a hard left here. And if there's something we haven't been talking about so far that's either really important for authors to know about getting media and exposure via podcasts now, and or like a word of encouragement to just start a podcast and get it off the ground and get going, anything come to mind on either of those fronts that we should dive into?
Yeah. So, well, I would say first and foremost is like how to show up on that interview. Because I would say, like, when you look at an interview, man, there's like 3 major parts to it. There's your personal story, there's the message you teach, and the call to action. And I think oftentimes, like, the authors that are bad with this are the ones that just aren't fun to interview. They're like, well, on page blah, blah, blah of my book, well, on this in my book, and in this in my book. And it's like, okay, but you're here for 35, 40 minutes. You're the expert. Like, I need to learn from you. I need to be really good at this. Now, I'll say a caveat to that, because somebody I interviewed that was ridiculously good at this, I did an episode with Nathan Latka, and Nathan would explain it and then somehow give the page number. I don't know how the heck he did this, but he would explain it and literally in his head know the page number if they want to go read more about what he just talked about. But most people will say, in my book, I said, in this book, I said, or whatever it may be, explain the point. Explain exactly what you're going to tell people, because they're there to learn from you. They're there to learn from the expert. And it creates this natural trust that when you've explained what you're talking about, when you've helped them, they naturally want to move forward with you and continue that relationship. And that call to action really should be to some sort of it's different with an author than it is with most people, because most people, I say, it's a tool, that's something you're going to apply. To me, it should be a landing page that either sells that book or pre-orders that book with a Google pixel on it, because or a Facebook pixel on it, because you should be able to retarget those people in ads, because they may not take action on that right away. So I think that's something really vital to think about. All three of those things have to be lined up. Your personal story, like, because it creates trust and transformation and shows that you can help them, the things you're going to teach, and then that call to action.
I love it. And just in the spirit of nerding out a little bit, let's actually talk just for a moment about that, like where you direct people and the call to action on the show. So like, now you've identified the kind of shows you want to be on as an author, and you've reached out, and now you're there and you've delivered a ton of value, and you've created an engaging listening experience for their audience. Like that call to action part, I'm so interested to dive into this, because I see a lot of authors make the mistake as well of being like, you can find me here on Facebook, and if you go to Instagram, here's my, you got to think people are either driving or they're working out, or like it's a passive experience that's listening. So what would you say in terms of like how to transition that attention from the show to the next step for them? Like,
well, there's a couple different ways to do this. One of our clients in the past, his name is Lance Esios. It's like, I love you, Lance, but good luck spelling that name. So, we had him, put together a website, which was readwithlance.com. Like, you want to think of like the place you're sending people and the one place you're doing it has to be something very, very easy and very, very simple. And people need to be able to spell that. So that's why, like, there's a lot you have to take into consideration there. Like, if you're going to have numbers in that, are those numbers written out? Are they the actual numbers? So you want to like really avoid things that are, in the listened word can be very difficult to understand. So if you have a difficult to spell name, come up with a vanity URL that's going to be easy. If you're going to have it on your website, that's fine. Just make sure it's an easy website for people to remember. But don't give out 27 different links in your grandmother's email address, because nobody can remember that. And it's pretty crazy to me, though, that people actually think that somebody's going to go to each and every one of these links. Now, the place you're sending people should, have that book available for pre-order or order or whatever it may be. And maybe you want to have some other episodes you've done there. You want to have some other media you've done there, or another resource that you have for them. And that's fine. You can have that on the landing page, but don't promote every single thing, because you're going to find that it drives inaction. Like, nothing happens because people have too many options. That's why I even say, like, sometimes people want to mention 2 things, and I feel like 2 things is almost too much. It has to be down to really one place to send people, because when you give people a decision, the decision they'll make is no decision.
I love it. That's the most solid advice that I think for any podcast guest going into their next show is like, what's that one single clear call to action? And I'll dive into that a little and share it like with 2 examples, which start from zero. We were talking about startfromzero.com, spelled out, not the number 0, startfromzero.com. And that's it. Like, it's easy to remember. You go there, but that's an entry point that has information about the book, podcast episodes. You could start reading right away with no opt-in even required. So it's the perfect place to send everybody and anybody that ever listens to that episode. And just to circle back on the point you made, Jeremy, that on that page, there's a pixel. So now someone listened to you, they like it, they go to the site, even if they don't opt in, they don't buy your book, they don't do anything, you can still continue that by saying, oh, have you checked out this resource, or check out this episode of Start From Zero, where he's coaching people through launching their own business, right?
And here's the thing to this too, like, who do you use for your email marketing, Jesse? Like, because I know ActiveCampaign ActiveCampaign has an ability that if somebody's even on your email list, like let's say they opted in, and they go to a landing page, you can email them off the landing page. So let's say Jesse's on my email list and he hasn't bought, my book yet. He goes back to the landing page again. He now has an email in his inbox that says, "Hey, Jesse, I noticed you haven't bought the book yet." I'm a little freaked out, but also like that's a pretty awesome follow-up sequence too.
I just learned something. I'm sorry, ConvertKit. You
There
please
may be
cancel
other
my
services that do
subscription?
it, but I know I've only seen ActiveCampaign doing it right now.
But these start to speak to, and I don't want to go like all the way deep down the technical rabbit hole, because I think the most important thing is podcasts as a medium, more people listening than ever. Get your butt on podcasts as an author and consider starting one. And once you're there in the episode, where people go next, if we sort of suffice to say one destination and that is an entry point that accounts for all the behavior people could have. They're just interested and they want to check something out, great. They want a little bit more resource and accountability, they can opt in and receive something and get a follow-up. They're ready to buy, great, they can do that too. And they have an opportunity to present like media or something else, that's the media page or the corresponding contact. So then whoever is going there, because again, like I'm sure you see this all the time, we don't know who's listening to the episode. It could be a CEO or it could be like an assistant that then flags the CEO. And now you've got unexpected ears like listening to your story and message. Anything to say on that point?
Here's the thing I'll say too, and I know you said not to go down the tech rabbit hole, but man, I love the
Take it
tech
away.
rabbit hole.
Just go.
So there is another service called Get Emails, and have you heard of Get Emails?
Mm-mm.
So basically, they have a
Right? Is it
massive
like
database of people.
hunter.io?
No, this is even better. They have a massive database of people that have opted into lists and that are approved to opt into things. So basically, they will take the anonymous traffic to your website and opt them into your list. So it's that would be another incredible thing to have set up with that landing page. I think it's like $19 a month. It's a pretty cool product. But like we've gotten hundreds of people on our email list that have just anonymously ended up on our website. So that's another thing to think about that page, because you want to think this call to action you're sending somebody to, it's a relationship building tool. Most people aren't going to take action on it, and that's fine, but they could go to the page, they could check out more about you, and you want to give them an opportunity to continue that relationship. So you mentioned, maybe you're going to give them an opportunity to read a free chapter or something like that. Anything you're going to give away, you need to collect an identity, and that should be like an email address or something like that. So the way I would recommend it is two ways. You want to collect their email address. Not everybody's going to give you that. So I would also get sign up for Get Emails, because then what happens is you put them in an email sequence of everybody that's been to that page so that you can continue that relationship with them and give them an opportunity to maybe buy that book further down the road, or at least recommend your book to somebody. I've recommended books to people that I haven't bought because I've known the topic and known the author. I'm like, oh, this would totally fit with you, but it's not really my jam. So you need to always be thinking about this being a relationship building tool and an opportunity to go further.
That's brilliant. Wow. Incredibly well said. I actually just learned so much in those last 5 minutes myself.
I love my internet tools, man. I can't help myself.
Well, on that note, I'll share one more, just a complementary strategy to kind of cap it off, because I think it's one of the most brilliant approaches, and full credit to our man, George Bryant. But he's kind of a beast with getting on shows and creating content, and he's all about adding value. But then he'll say, go to mindofgeorge.com,
Which I did, by the way, after he talked about it.
Right? Because it's easy enough to remember, and it's one destination. But here's the little trick that he would probably share as well, but if not, I'm kind of outing him. You could redirect that URL based on what's going on. So like if you've got a book launch, now all those touch points, Mind of George, view, now mindofgeorge.com goes to a page all about the book and talking about that. But a month later or a few weeks later, you could redirect it to a Facebook group, which he's now done. I believe it's pointed now to his Relationships Beat Algorithms Facebook group. And that's the front point. So once you get these touch points out, and we can start to close up this interview on this point, because it kind of brings it all together. If you have great content and you're increasing your digital footprint and it all goes to one place, then that final piece is being able to direct where that one place ultimately takes people. And I'll sort of leave it there in terms of like a front to back marketing strategy for authors and incorporating podcasts in so many ways. I will give you the final words.
Well, I would just say too, like, with shows you want to be on, like follow up is key. You know what I mean? there's always the idea of a no is not always a no. It's a not right now, unless they say leave me alone or I'm calling the police. That's never happened. Um, but I will say, like, keep that in mind. Like, I'll say from the perspective of people I've had on my show, like, it's taken me 4 or 5 years to have some of the guests I've had in my show. Like, I had, some people love him, some people hate him, but I had Ted Nugent on the show last week. Took me 4 years to get him. So you want to keep thinking of, like, these shows. It's going to be follow-up
Did he
sometimes, because
sing Cat
maybe
Scratch Fever live?
he did not sing Cat Scratch Fever live, but man, that dude has got a mouth on him.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, you have to understand, like, there's also, like, as a host, we have content calendars. Like, we have different topics we're covering at different times. Like, right now, with the whole world going a little corona crazy, I'm covering health topics, meaning mental health, physical health, spiritual health, financial health, because I want people to get the help they need, and they need it right now. So we have different things going on depending on what season of our show it is too. So you need to keep that in consideration and realize it's not you. It may be the time and it may be the opportunity, but it's not you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for coming on, opening up the kimono, sharing your years and years and years of expertise with podcasts. It's so appreciated. And how can everybody find you? Well, if they took their advice from listening so far, they just Google you, but feel free to tell everybody where they can get in touch with you.
I don't want to be that guy, because I asked a guest once, where can people find you? And he goes, Google me. And then there was an expletive after it. I'm like, yeah, we're not going to do that.
That's what the whole interview was about. Google him.
Yeah. So I would say, like, if people got a lot of value out of this, I have even more value I want to give them, and they can actually go over to commandyourbrand.com/free training, commandyourbrand.com/free training. And it's going to go through 45 minutes of everything you need to know about lining yourself up to find the right shows, locate the right shows, book the right shows, and position yourself correctly. So that's the best place to find me.
Awesome. And wherever you're watching this, that'll be linked below. And let's all give Jeremy a Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press community round of applause. Thank you so much, brother. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me, man.